And then, with Uptown United just coming onto the scene, and, I've heard people talk that Andrea now kind of assumes them to be a marketing arm of the Uptown Association, really realizing that is a business association. Like, they represent business owners primarily. That's kind of in their definition. I think the idea is that a People's Assembly can, one, kind of span those different neighborhoods that all constitute the greater Uptown area, but really kind of focus on Uptown as its epicenter and kind of span outward from there, and also get more political and make specific demands and do things that, the neighborhood associations don't have the power that it sounds like they used to.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
Calling all cat people. This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
Okay, we are back on the Wedge Live podcast. I am your host, John Edwards. Joining me today is Lauren McCarley, an organizer for something that is called the Uptown People's Assembly. I don't know anything about it, so this is a good place for everyone to learn about it. Thank you for being here, Lauren.
Yeah, of course.
What is the Uptown People's Assembly?
Well, a People's Assembly is kind of an open participation space where people can bring any sort of issue to engage directly with the group, rather than kind of relying on a structure with elected representatives. And it organically kind of came about in opposition to the Uptown Association's push for a business improvement district. It evolved from there. I think it's not productive to just be against something. So we wanted to have an alternative vision, and it's to create a place for the people of the greater Uptown area to bring their issues, make collective demands, and really try to put things to paper about how we can make the neighborhood better.
And it is Saturday, June 13th. So coming up in a couple of days.
Yep.
After this episode posts. 1 to 4 p.m., First Universalist Church, 3400 Dupont in South Uptown.
Yep. Doors open at 1, and the event will start promptly at 1:30.
Is this going to be a continuing thing? It's not just a one-off event.
Yeah, our thinking is that we'll do kind of a 2-month frequency, give people time to kind of ruminate on demands and come up with ideas. And we really want this to be a place where people can bring actionable items. And so, whether that means some people are doing some work on the side in working groups and they can come, back with kind of a more concrete idea of something that they can ask of the group. Like, that's kind of the goal, is to create a space for people to allow their demands to be amplified by a greater mass of people.
And it's you and a bunch of your neighbors, correct? That's who's behind it?
Yeah, I think most of us live kind of either in South Minneapolis or in South Uptown in particular, or in kind of any sort of area that could be construed as Uptown by someone's definition.
And is it meant to offer an alternative vision to the Uptown Association and that crew, like Andrea Corbin? And we've seen this Uptown United group spring up. Is it meant to be an alternative vision to that?
I think there was a culmination of a few things happening. I mean, the Uptown Association, and specifically Andrea Corbin's push for a business improvement district, has kind of gotten louder, it feels like, over, the last 6 months. And then, with Uptown United just coming onto the scene, and, I've heard people talk that Andrea now kind of assumes them to be a marketing arm of the Uptown Association, really realizing that is a business association. Like, they represent business owners primarily. That's kind of in their definition. And, the neighborhood associations are pretty limited in their ability to, they can't really get too political. They are pretty limited in their scope, and a lot of times the involvement is just not like wholly representative of the people living in the neighborhood. And so I think the idea is that a People's Assembly can, one, kind of span those different neighborhoods that all constitute the greater Uptown area, but really kind of focus on Uptown as its epicenter and kind of span outward from there, and also get more political and make specific demands and do things that, the neighborhood associations don't have the power that it sounds like they used to. So, there's always going to be room for an alternative avenue that focuses on residents and workers, really.
So I have my differences with Andrea Corbin and the Uptown Association, but there's been kind of a leadership vacuum in Uptown. Like the Uptown Association has felt absent for a very long time. And then Andrea Corbin comes in with boundless energy. Whatever you think about Andrea Corbin, just boundless energy, and like you can kind of dominate I don't know if defunct is the right word, but like Uptown Association wasn't doing much. Then Andrea Corbin comes in with the energy and can kind of dominate it and shape it in her image. And I feel like a lot of business owners really appreciate that. Like they feel represented by her. Even with my political differences, I kind of appreciate the energy and attention it's bringing, because that has been missing. What do you think about that?
I mean, this comes up in the neighborhood association a lot all the time. People kind of remembering how it was 25 years ago or something when, people had a lot more spare time to get involved in this stuff. And so, I think it does help when there's somebody who's willing to take charge. It's easier for people to get involved. And so I absolutely understand the appeal. I think the problem is, sometimes focusing too much on, negative components of like what's going on in the neighborhood rather than kind of directing that energy into, okay, Hennepin's under construction right now. Like which businesses are in trouble? Can we talk to them? Can we help them? And, the People's Assembly is focused. I mean, our interests as residents, as workers in Uptown, are not always in alignment with the desires of a business owner. Something can be seen as good for business and not necessarily help residents. So there is always going to be a little bit of a divide there. And I think the neighborhood associations are a great place to also assist with some of this business help. I mean, I'm on the Land Use and Transportation Committee in South Uptown. And, one of the things I'm already thinking about is like when Lyndale's under construction, like, can we start conversations now with businesses to help try to, do some sort of grassroots support? I think that's what's so interesting about Uptown United kind of responding to, seeing the response to ICE and using that as their, this is how we want to start out. Well, a lot of it was kind of concentrating people's energy in places that need help. And so, I think as far as business assistance, neighborhood associations can be a place, if people have got energy to get involved. Like, we're always looking for people with energy. And I think the People's Assembly is more so going to be focusing on not businesses as much as the residents.
Is the organization going to be outright opposed to the idea of a business improvement district, or just a critic, or what's the specific stance there?
Yeah, I mean, we are outright opposed to a business improvement district. It's essentially privatizing services that are being administered directly by the city right now. So the city has special service districts across the city. There are like 16, I think. And so, there's one in Lowry Hill. There's one in Uptown, kind of in the epicenter of Uptown. There's a Lynn Lake one. There's an Eat Street one. And, there have been there's been discussions of kind of dissolving 2 or 3 of them and trying to turn them into this business improvement district. But the special services districts usually have kind of a limited scope of items that they do, which includes, plowing and commercial trash pickup. And the BID would take those services and, put all of the tax money that these businesses are paying into, put it in a nonprofit that would have a board of directors very similar to a neighborhood association, and then they would decide how to spend the money. And so it would basically be them re-administering the services that the city was already doing, but it would also give them the power to kind of maybe levy extra taxes and hire private security. I know Andrea Corbin's been very upfront about wanting to hire private security. And for as long as I've lived in the area, I've seen, representatives of those companies at public safety events getting FaceTime. And that's an extra burden on a small business that becomes a risk when you look at privatizing city services. Nobody's even complaining about the snow plowing in Uptown. Like that's kind of like a why are we fixing what's not broken situation.
So the way people can think about it is we have a downtown improvement. That's a business improvement district. So they're trying to do a similar thing there. I have kind of an open mind to the idea of a business improvement district, but I'm also deeply skeptical of the people I know would be behind it. Like if we had a more enlightened group of business owners who we could trust would be in charge of it, would it change your opinions, or is it simply just the structure of it that you think is terrible?
Well, I think that the structure almost implies that we've tried everything else, and we haven't. I mean, there are ways to kind of max out structures that the city has already given us. People will complain about needles, and then you ask, have you reported it to 311? And they say no. And it's like, okay, well, there is actually a system, and a lot of it is making sure people know about this stuff. And that's one thing I'm grateful for the neighborhood associations for, is that they usually have kind of educational things at their monthly meetings. A BID is usually kind of reserved for tourist destinations. I don't know a ton about the history of BIDs in other cities, but it is kind of a last resort in this case, and it's not really being presented as a solution other than we would be able to hire private security and do extra stuff. I think what's most telling is that the Urban Land Institute, which did a technical access assistance panel for Uptown, they explicitly did not recommend a BID. And this is a group of panelists that comprise real estate developers and urbanists and planners, and they don't see that value in a business improvement district.
So I wanted to ask you about that, and I was wondering if you would have come prepared and knew a little bit about that. So what is the distinction? I think the phrase they used, neighborhood improvement district. So they didn't recommend a BID. They did recommend a neighborhood improvement district. What is the distinction between those things?
Yeah, a neighborhood improvement district could include residents. A business improvement district specifically it consists of businesses. They gave this report, or they gave a presentation on their report to South Uptown, and they made a lot of caveats about the neighborhood improvement district. About it would have to be administered very carefully. There would be a lot of discussion. It would have to be, there's a lot of nuance to go over. But one of the most striking things is, depending on how the city ultimately, and the city would have to be the ones to decide to make this happen. Depending on how they choose to go about it, in some cases, only 35% of the people that would be paying into this have to approve it. And they don't have any sort of opportunity to opt out. Decisions absolutely do not have to be unanimous. And then, you end up with a situation like a board. And like I mentioned, with neighborhood associations, they're great. I love being a part of one, but it's usually not representative of the whole neighborhood. And some of the people who have the least time to participate in something like this would be the people that could be most adversely impacted by having to pay into, an extra system.
So again, I kind of like the idea that business owners are more engaged theoretically. Like I want the quote unquote stakeholders to be very engaged and working hard to make things better together. What should they be doing? Should they just be doing a better job with their Uptown association? I got a free hot dog at 31st and Hennepin a couple of weeks ago, and Taylor Darlene told me it was a union busting hot dog, but I don't care. It was delicious, and it was free.
I don't know. I think there's the Minneapolis 2050 plan is going to be under progress pretty soon, and I think that's an opportunity for people to give their opinions on things like zoning and stuff they want to see. Does our zoning allow for things like corner stores and things that can kind of increase overall variation in the businesses and, get more people on the street? You go to one business, you just keep walking, you might pop into another. I think 31st and Hennepin is a great intersection where, you have these businesses that have a lot of kind of cross-pollination in some sense. I think there's also like some very real structural problems with how commercial real estate works and how, the vacancies in Uptown are not necessarily disincentivized. One of the things we're looking to do with the People's Assembly is really mobilize people to get these buildings on the vacant buildings registry. There are a lot of buildings that people just assume are already, being fined for their vacancies, and they're not. And I think it's really important that we lay some pressure on property owners. If they're going to be using this as just a tiny little building block in their massive portfolio, doing, tax write-off magic or, just playing the waiting game because Uptown is a geographically amazing area to invest in. They're just kind of waiting for someone else to do the work of making the neighborhood just amazing again. I think, we need to look at the neighborhood as a whole, see, kind of from a master planning perspective, what it needs. And that's another thing that we're kind of asking people to come to the People's Assembly with is like, what do you want to see in this neighborhood? What would benefit you? What do you need more of? Like, what do you not have within kind of closer walking, biking distance that you would really benefit from?
There's a recent media blitz. The Uptown Association was making a lot of noise about homelessness. It's a real problem. Like if you have someone using drugs or going to the bathroom outside your business, as a property owner, business owner, resident, you don't like that. That's not good for you. You want the government to come in and do something about it. And the solution that we have arrived at with MPD is property owners will post trespassing signs. MPD will cite people, arrest people, move them along. And it took a couple of weeks for them after the initial media blitz of things are in crisis in Uptown to say, wow, things are so much better. Do you have a perspective on whether this worked? Did they solve the problem they set out to solve? Should they have done it this way? What is the solution to what is a real legitimate problem for people?
Well, I do think there's a little bit of collective amnesia happening about homeless people. I think when a neighborhood is really active and there's a lot of people on the street, you probably just don't notice some of the homeless people that have been there the whole time. And, if we want to talk about street vibrancy and how to bring it back so that, there are more eyes on the street, because that was, Uptown United's whole approach was if we're on the street, the homeless people won't want to do drugs in front of us, which is kind of a wild approach. I do not think that the increase in policing is necessarily the answer. I know that it's come up in kind of other conversations around the neighborhood that, they're not even actively stopping drug deals that are happening right in front of them. But, one of the organizers of the People's Assembly was harassed for peeking in the window of Arizona Taco a week after the event that was held there, just
I was fascinated
what's going
by
on
that.
inside? How's the construction of the salsa floor coming? And then MPD, move it along. You're trespassing. We're going to fine you. How could that possibly be the right solution?
So I'm curious. I read that opinion in the Star Tribune and I'm a person who often looks in the windows of businesses.
As you should.
Because I'm very curious.
I think
take
it's just
photos.
a duty to be nosy.
So is this a white person? Is it because I'm very concerned about it happening to me?
No.
Is it a white person?
No, he's not a white person.
Okay. Now it makes all the sense in the world.
Right. And there are a lot of non-white people that live in Uptown and in the greater Uptown area. And we should all, I believe it is our rights to be as nosy as we want when something is under construction.
That was a crazy anecdote. I was like, how long do you have to be peeking into a window before MPD doesn't have response times like this?
And that's another thing is there's nothing that quite highlights a vacancy like no trespassing signs. Just plastered all over.
Is there anything else we need to tell people before we promote this event one last time?
I mean, there's a lot of discourse about what's going on in Uptown, and I think a lot of the talk about Uptown's future recognizes that the days of it being kind of a shopping mall type destination are gone. And I've been really pleased that the conversation has started to go in that direction. I mean, even Fry at the VFW event, last week kind of repeated that same sentiment. And so it's becoming pretty widely accepted that that's the case. So then what are we left with? Like, it's a neighborhood. It's a neighborhood where people live and people work. And you want a neighborhood to be self-sustaining in some respect. So that means that the full-time residents and workers need to be a part of the solution. And they need a place where they can make their concerns heard in a way that, isn't bound by specific streets and really, use kind of the mass of people that do really, really care and don't know where else to kind of put their concerns. Let us all amplify it and, see what we can do.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Lauren McCarley is an organizer with the Uptown People's Assembly, and you can attend on Saturday, June 13th from 1 to 4 p.m. at the First Universalist Church, 3400 Dupont in South Uptown. This has been the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. Thank you for listening.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.